August 3rd, 1944. 04:12 a.m. Peleliu, Western Pacific. The sky is still black, the sea flat as glass, and the jungle-soaked island ahead looks like a slab of shadow floating in the void. A single whisper of wind cuts across the deck of USS Pennsylvania as Marines lean over the rail, staring at the dark mass of land the Japanese have spent 2 years turning into something they believed could never be taken. Then, a flash. Not American. Japanese coastal guns spit fire from the ridgeline of Umurbrogol Mountain, their muzzles blooming in the dark like the island itself is waking up. The Marines flinch as the first shells whistle overhead, tearing into the sea like molten fists. You can almost feel the pressure wave hitting your chest. Someone mutters under their breath, "They're awake already." Jesus. Below decks, in the briefing room, a map of Peleliu hangs under a red lamp. Circles mark blockhouses, pillboxes, tunnels, fortifications so dense they seem to overlap. It looks less like an island and more like a steel knot. Colonel Lewis, chesty puller, studies it without blinking. The Japanese commander, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, has built what Tokyo proudly calls an invincible fortress. A labyrinth of concrete, steel, volcanic rock, and spiderweb tunnels that can't be bombed into submission, can't be burned, can't be starved. At least, that's what they believe. Now, as pre-dawn gloom begins to thin, the scale of it becomes painfully real. The Americans watch the silhouette of the island harden. Jagged cliffs, ridges shaped like broken teeth, and a mountain honeycombed with firing ports so small they look like shadows. Every one of those shadows hides a gun. On the flagship, Major General William Rupertus stands rigid, certain of his prediction. It will take just 3 days to secure Peleliu. But intelligence photos have already told another story, and the ground shaking beneath the Marines' boots tells yet another. As the battleships open up, the horizon turns white. A wall of flame rolls across the island, detonations pushing columns of smoke thousands of feet into the air. The naval bombardment is so violent it feels like the ocean itself is trembling. Men grip railings, teeth chatter. But unseen under that volcanic rock, the Japanese sit unharmed. Entire units wait in tunnels cooler than the surface, deep enough to survive anything the U.S. Navy throws down. Officers check their watches. They know the Americans are coming. They know the real battle hasn't even started. Above the inferno, Lieutenant William Hawkins of the 1st Marine Division grips a pair of binoculars and frowns. "They're not firing back," he says. "Why aren't they firing back?" The answer sits deep in the earth, silent, patient, and deadly. Because Nakagawa has rewritten the entire Japanese defensive doctrine. No more suicidal banzai charges, no more wasting men on beaches. This time, the Japanese won't try to throw the Americans into the sea. They're going to let the Americans walk straight into hell. Hawkins lowers his binoculars, unease crawling up his spine. Somewhere inside that mountain, guns are being loaded, triggers tightened, ambushes rehearsed. The Americans think they're destroying a fortress. They're not even scratching it. And at that exact moment, as the sun finally crests the horizon, streaking the smoke with blood-red light, a single Japanese artillery gun fires again. Precise, deliberate, impossibly accurate. The shell arcs high. It's not aimed at the battleships. It's aimed at the landing craft. And hundreds of Marines suddenly realize the fortress isn't sleeping. It's waiting.
The sun is barely above the horizon when the first wave begins its run toward White Beach. The air reeks of cordite and diesel. The sea, moments ago calm, now churns with the wakes of dozens of Higgins boats cutting hard through the surf. Marines crouch low, rifles across their chests, helmets rattling with each slap of the waves. At 06:55, a strange quiet hangs in the air. No machine gun chatter, no mortar thumps, no screaming banzai charges, just the dull roar of engines and the clatter of gear. It feels wrong, so wrong that some Marines keep glancing at the island like it's a wild animal pretending to sleep. Lieutenant Hawkins, riding in one of the forward craft, presses his jaw tight. He's fought on Cape Gloucester. He knows what Japanese coastal defenses look like when they're truly damaged. This isn't it. Ahead, the beach looks almost peaceful. White sand, a few shredded palm trees, and a rocky ridge looming behind everything, casting a long, dark shadow across the shoreline. The Umurbrogol, the fortress. At 07 exactly, a whistle shrieks. The coxswain drops the ramp, and hell opens. Not from the front, from above. Dozens of pillbox ports, previously invisible in the cliff face, erupt simultaneously. A chain of Type 96 machine guns scythed downward. Tracer rounds stitch across the beach in perfect, disciplined arcs. A storm of gunfire chews into the first wave before many Marines can even take a step. The air fills with screams. Mortars begin falling next. Light at first, then heavy, walking their explosions across the sand in metronomic precision. Sand kicks up like geysers. Men dive for cover that doesn't exist. The beach offers nothing but burning debris and the occasional crater already packed with bodies. Inside a command post carved deep into the mountain, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa watches the carnage unfold through a narrow, reinforced observation slit. He doesn't smile. He doesn't gloat. He simply nods to his operations officer. Everything is happening exactly as planned. Because the entire Invincible fortress isn't built on the beaches. It's built behind them, on the ridges, in caves, in overlapping fire lanes that turn the landing zone into a bowl of death. The Americans expected resistance. They didn't expect perfection. By 7:22, sections of the 1st Marine Division are pinned so hard they're barely crawling forward. Platoons disappear into smoke and machine gun fire. Medics sprint across open sand, dragging men by their webbing, bullets snapping inches from their shoulders. Hawkins finally hits the beach, rolls into a shallow depression, and feels rounds tearing through the air above him like hornets. He pulls his radio operator beside him. "We need those guns suppressed. Get me anyone!" But the radios crackle uselessly. Too much interference, too much chaos, too much sheer noise. On the ridge, Japanese gunners shift targets with frightening discipline, never wasting ammunition, always firing in short, controlled bursts. Every time a squad tries to rush forward, a new gun opens from a new angle. Someone shouts, "They're everywhere! Where the hell are they firing from?" The real horror begins to sink in. They can't see the enemy. Because Nakagawa's tunnel network isn't just deep, it's smart. Machine gun crews fire from one port, then vanish into the tunnels, reappearing minutes later on the opposite side of the ridge to start the process again. Mortar teams pop out of concealed spider holes, fire a few rounds, and disappear. The Americans aren't just fighting a fortress, they're fighting a ghost. By late morning, casualty reports are already stacking up in the command post offshore. Officers stare at maps darkening with grim markers. But despite everything, the Marines inch forward, one burning pillbox at a time. Flamethrower teams work their way up the sand, leaving trails of fire in their wake. Demolition men sprint forward with satchel charges, blowing apart concrete bunker mouths. Riflemen crawl, drag, and claw toward the line. And for a moment, just a moment, Some believe the worst might be over. Then they hear it. A deep, metallic rumbling from within the mountain. Not gunfire. Something bigger. Something that shouldn't be there. Because Nakagawa has kept a final surprise hidden deep in the tunnels. And now, he's about to unleash it.
The rumble grows louder, slow, grinding, metallic. It vibrates through the sand, through the shattered palm trunks, through the rib cage of every Marine pinned on the beach. Some turn their heads, expecting tanks to crest the ridge, but nothing moves on the surface. Because the sound isn't coming from the ridge, it's coming through it. Deep inside Umurbrogol Mountain, Japanese crews shove massive shells into the breaches of Type 3 75mm anti-ship guns, artillery that American intelligence never noticed, never bombarded, never accounted for. These guns aren't firing out of caves or dugouts. They're firing from chambers carved straight into the mountain's bones. An officer shouts the command. The gunners swing the elevation. Foot pedals slam. The first shot screams out of a seemingly invisible slit in the rock and slams into the line of LVTs still approaching the beach. The explosion is blinding. Flaming debris sprays across the water. Marines in other landing craft watch in horror as one of the Amtraks tips forward, burning, its passengers spilling into the surf. Men dive into the water only to be caught in bullet hail from machine gun nests waiting for them. Hawkins sees it all from the shoreline. His heart hammers. "They've got heavy guns up there," he mutters to his sergeant. "Inside the damn rock." The sergeant spits blood from a cut on his lip. "Sir, how do we fight a mountain?" Before Hawkins can answer, another shell smashes into the beach, heaving a crater that tosses Marines like rag dolls. The concussion steals all sound for a moment, just a ringing void, like the world has gone underwater. When sound returns, it comes back as chaos. Mortars, machine guns, screams, and always that grinding rumble as the next shell rolls into the breach. From the command ship offshore, General Rupertus watches through binoculars. The smoke is so thick he can barely make out the ridgeline, but he sees enough. Waves of Marines pinned flat, armor stalled, casualty reports crackling every few minutes. His earlier promise, 3 days, feels like a sick joke. Inside the tunnels, Japanese engineers sweat in the torchlight, hauling ammunition from one cavern to another. Runners dart through the darkness delivering orders. The Japanese haven't just built a fortress, they've built a living organism. Vent shafts suck smoke underground, escape tunnels crisscross like arteries. Gun chambers open into side passages wide enough for entire platoons to shuffle through without ever seeing daylight. The fortress breathes, it adapts, it survives. By noon, the heat on the beach becomes unbearable. Marines bake under the sun, trapped in open sand that reflects the light like a mirror. Canteens run low. Some men risk crawling toward the tree line, anything to get off the killing ground. But the trees hide their own horrors. Snipers, perched in reinforced pits just beneath the foliage, wait for movement. Every rustle draws a shot. Every puff of smoke reveals another hidden barrel. The Marines press on anyway. Hawkins leads his platoon toward a rocky outcrop offering just a sliver of cover. Bullets chip the stone behind him as he waves his men forward. "Stay low. Keep moving. Don't stop." A flamethrower operator beside him, Private Harold Bowen, drags his tank forward, breathing hard. The heat is cooking the metal on his back. He pauses, too long. A single Japanese round punches through his fuel line. Hawkins has barely enough time to shout, "Bowen, get down!" The explosion is instantaneous and brutal, a jet of flame erupting skyward, lighting the sand with a brutal orange glare. Men dive away. Hawkins slams behind a rock as the flame rolls over his helmet. When the flame dissipates, there is only blackened debris. He stares for a long second, jaw clenched, rage simmering. The Marines aren't just losing men, they're losing momentum. And everyone knows what that means. Because behind Hawkins, beyond the beach, beyond the tree line, lies the real beast, the Umurbrogol's interior, a labyrinth still untouched, undefeated, and very much alive. As afternoon shadows stretch across the sand, officers gather around Hawkins' position. Their faces are grim, streaked with sweat, dirt, and smoke. "We can't stay here," one says. "We can't move forward," another replies. "We can't go back," a third mutters. "We're stuck." Hawkins lifts his eyes to the mountain. Somewhere in those tunnels, Nakagawa is preparing the next phase. And they all know. Every minute they wait, the fortress grows stronger. The only answer is the one that terrifies every man around him. They must go up the ridge, into the teeth of the fortress, into the shadow of the mountain, into the place Marines will later call Bloody Nose Ridge.